Hello, everyone, and welcome to Voice Like a Lion podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Pemberton, and today we have another Stephen on the podcast, and I'm super excited to talk to this Stephen because he has over 1.2 billion with a B managed on Amazon, and I'm fascinated to talk to you, Stephen, to have you on the show. So first and foremost, welcome to the show, and then we'll keep going from there.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you for a multitude of reasons. I speak on quite a few podcasts. I have this podcast. And again, you and I are both in the e-com space. And one of the biggest things in e-com, probably of all time, I would say, outside of Shopify, is definitely Amazon. And so I'm interested to hear about your story, how you even found yourself in Amazon. And then I'm interested to know what your take is, what your view is on everything, how it's shifted over the past few years. Because I've been in e-com for almost 7 years now, and I've just seen, especially with Amazon, it was like the Wild West a few years ago, and then now it's very structured. So I'm interested to see how you've seen all of this stuff. But anyways, pick it up for us. How did you get into this? How did you find Amazon?
So Amazon's half the economy, and I think all of us are directly impacted by Amazon and what's going on there. But I was a TV reporter. I fell into Amazon accidentally when I was looking for a career change. I ended up working at a higher education firm that sold college courses for $99. That was my first marketing e-commerce job. And then right after that, I ended up at a women's plus size clothing company, and they weren't doing FBA. There was no such thing as Amazon ads at this point. It was way back in the day, like 12 or 13 years ago. And I ended up working for 5 failed startups in a row. Most of them did Amazon. And I learned an incredible amount. I wish I had the capital that I have right now, that I could have had it back then, because back then, I was one of the first people in the world to get a hold of Amazon advertising in their beta program, and I was getting position 1 for a lot of different terms. My camera's following my feed.
That's awesome.
The OBS bought tiny camera series. I'm not actually a fan. I don't endorse this camera. It's annoying me with this. I gotta but in any case, so I had an opportunity to test everything on Amazon before most people. And if I had the ability to get 2-cent clicks and ads and crushing it, making millions of dollars back then, that would be fantastic. So today, Amazon's hit its maturity phase. It's harder every year. Is it still worth doing? Absolutely. I'm biased to say that because I want people to pay me money and hire my agency, my Amazon guy. But I think the proof is in the pudding. Mm-hmm. And there's just a lot of opportunity, and that's why 500 brands actively pay my Amazon guy to manage their business on the platform. Basically, 1 out of every 20 transactions my agency touches because of that. So it's a great opportunity, and a lot of people are still launching on the platform. I think it was like 900,000 people opened an account last year. 500,000 of those are probably China, and maybe a couple 100,000 of those are duplicate accounts. But there's a lot of, there's 66,000 sellers that do between 1 and 5 million a year that live in the United States. So that's like my target demographic and my niche and what I focus on. And we go in there and just try and take care of business, because Amazon is an untransparent company. They don't help you. They don't tell you the rules. They enforce the rules haphazardly, and they're shoot first, ask questions later, and all of a sudden you got a listing yank.
Yep. What's funny is I resonate with all of that part. So, I mean, we've had a couple different brands on Amazon. We fell exactly into that 66,000. We were over $1 million a couple different times on Amazon. And I remember vividly that we had done pretty much every business model humanly possible, it felt like at that time, on Amazon. And I remember we bought a wholesale lot because we were doing wholesale at the time. And there was this guy, he was big at that time. I don't know if he's still big. And he was doing all this influencer stuff. And so he was selling lots. And so we go, okay, cool. It's a $15,000 lot. We'd be position 2 behind the brand, which was a huge red flag now looking back. And then we go, okay, cool. So, they're about to sell out of this inventory. We have the X amount of inventory. So we'd immediately pick up the buy box and we're going to make all this money. So we buy it and we send it in. Of course, we weren't the original person who bought it. So we didn't have this documentation signed that we were the ones that were supposed to sell it. It was supposed to be this other dude. And man, that was a huge headache because we immediately got shut down. and we are $100,000 in debt, and we're just like, what happened, and how do we pivot out of this? Because I just quit my job to go fully
Yeah.
into Amazon, and it was fascinating to. I mean, the honestly though, it's been a huge blessing. It was the evolution of me stepping into Shopify, my wife and I being able to figure it out with this inventory that we couldn't get rid of, and then of course the dude who sold us the lot said it was our fault, even though it was literally he's the middleman. And he didn't tell us that he was the middleman, which was crazy because he just said that he had authorization. And if you buy it from him, then we all had authorization, which is not the truth. But anyways, I digress. But with Amazon, it sounds like and I mean, that's crazy. 1 out of every 20 transactions your agency touches. So what have you seen? So let's say that you have someone who comes to you, they're part of the 66,000, they're making 1 to 5 million, and they want to go from 1 million to, let's say, 3 million. What is a couple of things that you look for in their brand to see if that's attainable for them? And then how long do you think it would take for them to get there?
Every brand's going to have a different experience, but there's some general best practices that I preach to. The first thing that I would do is I would look at their main image. The fastest way to grow on Amazon is to improve click-through rate, or CTR. And when you double CTR, it can be done in 10 hours. So for example, if we took a random product, so I've got some Vaseline on my desk here because my lips are chapped, and Vaseline is a super old school, old distribution brand. So chances are, if we went and looked at its random listing, it'd probably be pretty unoptimized. And this text wouldn't be readable on the search results. You maybe make the brand out, that's it. So if we were going to redo the main image of this imaginary listing, we'd probably open up the lid, we'd probably take out some of the the jellies, what they're calling it, and probably have it seep over the edge. We'd probably have the root ingredient. I have no idea what Vaseline is made out of, but let's imagine it's a plant. It's probably not. It's probably an oil-based product. But let's imagine that it was a plant. We'd probably put the plant behind it. We would probably try and show the product in use a little bit, maybe have some hands rubbing. We'd put a giant keyword on here. Let's see what it's for: baby healing jelly. So pediatrician rec. So this is like for babies. So maybe have a baby with a cheek and then like a hand caressing and like, moving it in there. And if anybody's uncomfortable or can't get that image to stick, they might put it on the packaging and blow it up like that. And so there's just a lot of things that you can do to get people more likely to click on the product, adding a keyword to the main image, showing the product in use, showing what it's made of, basically giving information. I would start with that. PPC would be the second track. We'd go in there and look at how the spend is occurring. If it's overspending in certain areas, I like to use what I call the golden keyword ratio. So I like 1 PPC keyword for every 2 organic. So for example, if your listing is indexing for 1,000 keywords and you're advertising for 1,000 keywords, I immediately know that your SEO sucks. And you have to go in there and fix your A+ content. By the way, A+ content indexes, you got to set the alt text with 100 characters of keywords, no commas. Don't forget to put Spanish on one of those photos because it's the fastest growing demographic. And there's just a lot of tips like that we could interweave and go through the motions. So in short, though, focus on traffic, not converting elements. Traffic is way more important. 7 times easier to double traffic than it is to double conversion. So those things come in the form of CTR, PPC, and SEO. On the conversion front, we could talk about design, we could talk about merchandising and copywriting, and maybe even catalog troubleshooting, as those often get in the way of a conversion. But those are the basic ideas and the things that I espouse.
That's actually really interesting. I mean, especially it's been a few years since we've done anything with Amazon, but I've of course keep up with it because, like you said, it's half the market. And I just think that that's so fascinating to me because you sit there and you're talking about PPC and SEO, and I resonate with all that. And I love, by the way, how you were explaining how to do that main image and what that would look like, because that is going to be the thing that makes you stand out more than anything else. And I love that. So with a brand, I have a real one. I'll just use a real example. And this may be, I thought you were going to like do it over the edge and have the whole photo going on right now. But
I just thought I'd use the product for fun.
Amazing. I love that. But there's a real brand. I'll use a real example, and we can talk about this a little bit more offline, is they're doing $200,000 a month with one product, and they want to scale, don't know how. This is what I find interesting with them. Their product's about $26, and that's what it costs. But their COGS is it's like $20 to make this thing. So what would you recommend to them? Because again, with PPC, if they just went immediately into that, I feel like they could almost scale themselves out of existence. And that's where they're really looking to do when they came to talk to me about it. what would you recommend that they do?
Raise the price. That's an easy one. There's four things that you can do in e-commerce to improve sales. Sell more products
Mm-hmm.
to more people more often for more money. And this is the one that everybody forgets about. It's the more money. Raise the prices. So a company like that with a single SKU and lots of success, but the COGS are $20, that's insanely high. I would be surprised if they're even pulling in 10% net profits on that after Amazon fees. And so raising the prices is going to be a no-brainer. There's a variety of ways you can raise prices, right? The easiest, of course, just raise the price. Other ways, though, you could have a bundle. You could put a 2-pack in place and try and push people that way, even share some cost savings on packaging, et cetera. But by and large, if they're doing 200K on a single SKU and COGS are $20 and they're selling for 26, this is a no-brainer raise the price sort of initiative. Because even if you went from 26 to say 29.99 and you lost $10,000 in velocity, you're still making, I don't know what the calculation is, but probably bigger than the
Yeah.
difference of lost sales.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense to me. I was just about to ask you that, and you answered my question before I asked this, because I see, especially because this one is very founder led with this company, and it's interesting that it's so founder led, and this person has no idea how to. They just kind of fell into success with Amazon. They don't know how to position themselves any different than anyone else. It just kind of happened for them, and I'm sure they have different skill sets. I don't know them super well, but they're also what I found to be interesting is a lot of founders, especially I've seen off of Amazon, and I'm curious if this is the same case for brands that are more on Amazon or Amazon centric. I've seen them be very price adverse as far as wanting to raise their price. Like if I'm sitting there and I'm talking to them, and it seems like a layup to me, it makes sense to me. It's like just raise your prices. I mean, that's $3. It's like that's for anyone who's looking at that. They may, if there's someone who's bought the product in the past, it's like, oh man, that sucks if they need to get another one. But at the same time, this $3 is not going to make or break it to me. If you took it from 26 to like 52, you doubled the price. Now I'm going, you would have like you said, you would have a pretty big loss in velocity at that point. But have you seen that to be true where with Amazon centric brands that they're a little bit more adverse to raising the price, and if so, why?
I think that's changed due to the hyperinflation that the United States and the world has experienced. The government will claim the worst year was 8%. It in reality is 24%. I mean, you could just, anybody listening to this, go to your Amazon order history, pick a random item you bought 3 years ago. Now go to the live listing page. How much did the price go up? That's the real inflation number right there. And so I think that brands had to raise prices. Now, the thing that Amazon loves though is low prices. So there's some pressure here coming on the seller. So Amazon's pushing prices down. You have the seller underneath them getting crushed. You have additional competitors. Amazon aggregators came in, hit them from the left. Then you got the Chinese coming in from the right and also lowering prices because they're going direct to consumer and they don't have to pay the American salaries, et cetera. And this creates a problem for American-based owned brands. This is why you have, not to go into politics, but I think it's topical here. This is why people like Donald Trump are talking about putting tariffs in place, which absolutely will affect everybody, especially Amazon sellers, because it's an unfair system at the moment that propagates the Chinese seller. And Amazon actually likes the Chinese sellers more than the American sellers. I could speculate as to the why. I think they just make more money on them and it's easier for them, and the Chinese complain less and open up more accounts, whereas the Americans demand equality and justice. And in China, it's all bribery and corruption. And so I think Amazon's making a mistake to embrace that. And I think we're going to become Alibaba light in the next 5 years on Amazon. And that will allow a secondary platform to come up, hopefully not Chinese owned, hopefully not TikTok, hopefully not Temu, but God forbid, right? I hope it's another American based company that comes out. But I can tell you right now, nobody's even close. The distribution network alone will take 10 years to catch up to, and nobody's got the cojones to make that happen. Target is the sleeper agent that I would be paying attention to if I was, a brand listening to this, because if they can get on Target's platform and use their distribution network and they're an up and comer and they're not as friendly to the Chinese and it's a little bit closed market, that's an experience I think is better and better. Case in point, have you ever been to a Walmart grocery pickup, Steven?
Yes. Yep.
Isn't it awful? How long did you have to wait?
Oh, a long time.
A long time, like 27 minutes, something
Oh
crazy, right?
yes, I mean that's for like 4 products. I mean not even a
Great.
whole
You
week's
could have just walked
groceries.
in.
I could have just
Right?
walked in and got it all and been out in half the time. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody listening to this who's been to Walmart grocery pickup will say the same thing. They've had the same experience. Now, same question, Target. You're not a female, you're less likely to shop there. But have you done Target grocery
Oh
pickup?
yes. So done it quite a bit. So actually we go to church in our local city, and in our local city we do a lot of pickups for the church. So yes, Target, we've been there quite a bit. Way faster, way better
Uh-huh.
experience. Actually, something that's interesting with Target that I don't think Walmart has that was really fascinating. I bought my wife a pair of earrings. I'll use the real story. And she put them in, and it made her like, and it got her ears inflamed, and so she decided to return them. And you can do a mobile return. I didn't know that. Like they come to the car, they say they just scan it. Hey, are you such and such? Yeah. It's like, okay, you're going to have so much amount of money come back to your account. And it's like,
Wow.
dang, they just came to the car, they grabbed the product from you, and then they say, yep, this is how much you get back. So it was such a smoother experience.
So Target has their shit together, bottom
Yeah.
line, and Walmart does not. Walmart also bought Jet and couldn't integrate with their POS. And I don't mean pizza, I mean points. And so that's why Walmart never caught up to Amazon. Are they growing? Yes. Why? But here is the litmus test. Have you ever heard of a native born Walmart brand?
No.
And you never will. Because Amazon allows for a new brand to advertise at the top of search and gain SEO rankings on the top of search at no unfair algorithm bull crap. Walmart, on the other hand, is putting its retail play at the top, and they cheat the algorithm and they have it weighted. So you'll never hear of a Walmart native born brand. You'll never hear of a good Walmart grocery pickup story, and you'll never see Walmart's distribution network ever catch up to Amazon. Therefore, that's the landscape that we're expecting. It's probably going to be a newcomer that nobody's been talking about. Just like DeepSeek is taking out Chat GPT and OpenAI, you're going to see some no-name brand come in and start blowing stuff up. However, a lot of flash pans like Temu come and go, big fundraise, big splash, lots of ads, and then it's just going to die down and nobody shops on there. And that's what happened to Jet. That's what happens for most of these platforms. But that's kind of where I see the landscape going. I think, is it getting harder to sell on Amazon? Yes. Is it pleasurable? No. Is it still a great business model? Yes. Why? Because it has a 15% net margin at the end of the day, and that's healthy in any vertical ever. And it requires less investment. Litmus test here. Restaurant. How much does it cost to open a restaurant? Well, if you did like a Chick-fil-A or a Five Guys or a Chipotle, $250,000, maybe even $500,000 to just get your license.
Yep.
Amazon. How much does it take to start an Amazon business? As little as, throw in a number, I would recommend 10K, but people get away with 3, 5K, etc.
Yep. Yeah.
And so that's just the nature of the beast right now.
That makes perfect sense to me. There's so many different things that you brought up. One of them, which you were talking about the inflation piece. I don't know if you've seen this because you brought up Walmart. That was really fascinating. But there's a gentleman, he had his Walmart app and he used to always shop his groceries through the app. He pulled it up and he went back to his groceries and it was like $170. And so then he put everything back in the cart to see how much it would be, and it was almost $500. Like it had almost 3x'd. And it had only been a few years since he had actually gotten that same exact order. And I just thought, oh, that's so crazy to think about that. Because, I mean, you hear those numbers where it's 8%, whatever percentage they want to tell you. And it's like, but that's not the actual. If you are going through a store, you know it's way more than 8%. You just feel it. Your wallet feels it.
God bless the government's quantitative easing, i.e. printing all that money and then giving it away to every other country. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, and then it's interesting what you were talking about because it's like you were reading my mind. You answered all the questions when it came to Walmart because I was going to ask you. I remember Walmart came on the scene when my wife and I were back doing Amazon, and I just remember it so vividly. We had these people come to us and it's like, hey, so we can take your $1 million business and we're going to turn it into a $10 million business. We're going to move everything over to Walmart. And I went, I just don't trust that. And I never got into Walmart Marketplace. Because I never saw it being beneficial. And there's people, and what's been interesting, this is years and years ago, and I don't run into a lot of people who do Walmart Marketplace. Like I've run into plenty of people who do Amazon. And I think that exactly to your point, I feel as if Target, this is something I think is going to be interesting. I would love to get your take on this, but I feel like Target has the potential, but I think
It
that
does.
the one of the ones right now is and I'm interested to see not only your take, but honestly how the landscape shakes out in the next few months. But TikTok is something where they're gearing up to directly compete, at least from my understanding, what they're trying to do. Because I talked to some agencies who are in a similar position to how you are with Amazon, they are with TikTok. And I was talking to them, and of course, they go over to China and go over to the UK all the time and go to their headquarters and talk to all these big wigs. And they say that they're gearing up to basically do fulfilled by TikTok. So was that fulfilled FBT? They have that now. So with all that going on, how do you see TikTok in the landscape in America? Because it may be prevalent internationally, but I think America is an interesting topic, especially right now.
The U.S. is the biggest market by a landslide. You got
Yeah.
Germany and Japan in a very distant seat. And you could combine all of Europe and it still wouldn't be the US market and it would be way more sophisticated. So that aside, I do think TikTok is a player, but let's be real. They're a technology influencer company. They're not a logistics company. What is Amazon? Amazon is a logistics company.
Yep.
So when you have a logistics company going up against a technology company, who is going to win with logistics? Without a doubt, the logistics company. So, what is 2-day Prime? Is that a technology or is that logistics? It's logistics.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we've established why Amazon is the winner, you have to have a logistics company beat Amazon at logistics. And I just don't see that happening without somebody as smart as Target and the distribution already in place happening. I thought somebody like Musk would come in and buy Sears up and try and create FBA2 a la some other sort of marketplace. But I think there's a lot of things that Amazon did right. Obviously, they did growth with no profit for X number of years. They had a visionary in Jeff Bezos. He got a glow up and he got muscly. I'm doing a glow up. I got muscly. I got a hair transplant, jaw surgery. I'm trying to do the same thing with my Amazon guy, falling in Musk and Bezos's shoes. But in any case, I think that TikTok is a player, but not the logistics player.
Mm-hmm.
And we've never seen anybody combine the two elements of a free marketplace with great logistics. Still, TikTok is embracing the Chinese shipments and the shoddy products and the Chinesium. And that's not going to make a great experience. And if you were to quiz people who are listening to this, how many primes have you purchased off of Temu? How many times have you purchased off of TikTok? We'll probably get some varying answers of somewhere between 1, maybe 2 purchases. And then you ask them, why didn't you purchase again? Lo and behold, shoddy products, didn't have a good experience, took forever, yada, yada. Yeah. Amazon Prime is still cheap enough and has a lot of benefits, and especially the speed and dependency, that it can still outperform at scale. And it's basically all the benefits of Costco: membership, protection, easy returns, with the speed of being 1-day, 2-day Prime. And the quality is just simply there. Is it the cheapest place to buy goods? No. But how many people, me included, are willing to just put my credit card into one spot 5 years ago and place all of my purchases in a single location? That amount of time savings makes up any sort of discount bargain hopping, waiting for my products to arrive. And then finally, after all is said and done, I do a chant and I say, God bless the trash man for taking away my brown boxes.
That's hilarious. I love that. So when you're working with some of these bigger brands on Amazon and they're starting to scale up, I've heard of brands where they transitioned away from FBA and they just got their own warehouses, did FBM. Do you think that that's a good play, or should they just stick with Amazon?
I have heard of this happening, but I have yet to actually see it on my own clients. So 90% of the brands that I work with are natively born on the Amazon platform. That means they're not logistics companies.
Yep.
So if you want to get into logistics, you need to be a logistics company. And if you're not a logistics company, opening a warehouse is one of the most awful things you can ever
Mm-hmm.
do. I opened up a warehouse and ended up losing $20,000 a month on all of the fees and the rent and the lease and the electrical and the insurance and then the employees who don't show up when it snows. It's just, it goes on and on and on. And then I tried to manufacture soap. I made these Age of Sage soaps. My daughter's name was Sage. I even made the image after her. And I was really trying to leave a legacy or something for my kids. I'm here to tell you that I failed so bad that I sold my brand off because I was losing so much money. Okay. If an Amazon expert is on a podcast talking about how hard it is to have a warehouse, you have been warned to not make that same mistake. Okay? And try and manufacture your own goods. Now, do I believe that we will someday see a resurgence of American manufacturing, US made products? Yes. Do I think it will require tariffs? Absolutely. And that seems to be about on the cusp of occurring. But in any case, no, I do not recommend FBM. And I gave you all the cost reasons. I didn't even touch base on the fact that your conversion rate goes down when you no longer have the Prime badge. And Seller Fulfill Prime is impossible to manage at your own warehouse, requires Saturday shipping, which, there are certain religions that won't even do that. And so keep in mind the difficulties that you have when you try and go out on your own. Amazon is the best logistics company in the entire world, and there is not even a close second, not even remotely a close second to Amazon's logistics power. So do not think that you're going to get better fees and more control by having your own warehouse. Having said that, there's exceptions to everything I've ever said on this podcast. And there is some dude who has a 500-pound item that, yes, that does make sense to FBM, okay? If it's large as a desk, yes, that makes sense to FBM. I get it, guys. There's exceptions here. But by and large, the gadget seller, the soap seller, the guy that sells Vaseline, FBA all day.
Yeah. I mean, if you're sitting there selling airplane parts, 100%, I could see that. But that's the biggest takeaway that I've gotten from our time spent together is logistics. I think that that's such a key to look at. It's like, okay, this is a logistics company. This is a logistics company. So if you want logistics to be done right, you go to a logistics company. I have a background in supply chain and logistics. And people don't, and I mean, I've had to come in and do whole warehouse management systems. I've had to set up all these different systems for a multi-billion-dollar company, and I've did it for about 5.5 years. People do not realize what goes into having a warehouse. I remember a few years ago, somebody was about to take on a warehouse, and they said, "Oh man, you should just come in and do this." It's like, you don't understand what you're asking for. And I explained it to them, and then all of a sudden they didn't do it. They went back to FBA. And I just remember my mom, it was like her dream. She wanted us to have a warehouse and to do all the warehousing. I said, "Mom, do you understand like the amount of overhead that you have? Do you understand the equipment that you need? Do you understand the manpower and all these things?" And she was like, "Oh, that's a lot." So yeah, that's a lot. It's like, and I don't want to
run a restaurant for perspective. And nobody wants to go run a restaurant. Nobody.
No. I have a good friend of mine that he owns a restaurant, and it sounds like an absolute nightmare. And I mean, just everything. And the fact that they're just like barely breaking even. He's got like 20 employees. He's got all these shipments coming in, everything to take care of this one restaurant. It's like, man, that's a lot.
If I ran a restaurant, I would ban smoking, and that would be like 80% of my servers and waitresses and cooks that I couldn't hire. So it would be a nightmare. I like being at home in my pajamas when the blizzard comes by.
Personally. Same. Yep. Absolutely. I'm exactly the same way. So because you explained kind of where you see the landscape going in the next couple of years, where do you see my Amazon guy going in the next few years?
So I had double-digit, triple-digit growth for 7 years, and this past year is the first year where I'm static. I'm no longer growing, and I'm like, oh man, I have no idea how to manage a company that's not growing. I've only known how to manage a company that's growing. So I'm like trying to level up as a CEO and a visionary, trying to figure out how to manage all that, and some of those experiences are challenging to me. When I tried to forecast, I was like, yeah, we're going to double again. Yeah, that didn't happen. And I don't, there's a lot of reasons why that might be the case. Maybe I created too many competitors with all my knowledge sharing. Maybe the market's saturated. Maybe it's not as many Amazon accounts are being opened. There could be all kinds of reasons why that could happen. But by and large, I'm going to have to come out with a competitive offering, more services, better services to accomplish some of that. And in the meantime, I'm tightening up my ship. I was at 550 employees. I'm now at
Well,
500, and just through regular attrition over the last year. And we've been way more selective about hiring. So that's just truly and honestly where I'm at as an agency owner. I also sell a lot of education products, and I'm trying to figure out like, okay, there's so many different customer targets. I don't ever want to lose a customer. How can I serve more
hmm
customers? And so I moved into the education vertical. And honestly, I'm an education company anyway that just happens to be an agency. None of my customers would say that or use those words, but that's just how I view it. And you do have to use your customers' own words to like market
yep,
yourself. But at the end of the day, I started my company on YouTube, and I'm a video editor, that just happened to create an agency on accident. So anyway, so finding growth, trying to figure out how to correct the static nature is something I'm actively working on. I brought in a COO for the first time. I've never had an integrator. So for those that follow traction and those visionary integrator roles,
hmm
I'm one of those select few that was placed in both the visionary and the integrator role. And now for the first time, I gave up integration. And so I've had to like figure out, oh, I have all this extra time on my hands. What do I do with myself? I hired a sales director for the first time. I'd done all the sales leadership myself up until 3 months ago. And so there's a lot of growing up and like trying to figure out how to be an owner, how to be just a visionary that doesn't do integration, that doesn't manage sales. And I'm like, what do I do with myself? So I'm having a lot of those conversations and traveling a lot too. I went to Colombia, I went to Belize, Guatemala, Bahamas, Japan, Thailand, Turkey. I've done a lot of travel in the last 8 or so months as I try and self-discover again. So a lot going on, probably more
yeah.
than you asked.
No, that's actually perfect for a couple different reasons. If for no one else, for me, because two things is one is it's I sit there and I think about this quite a lot. Actually, my wife and I talk about this quite a bit. I talked to my business partner about this yesterday. It's like, okay, as we continue to scale, there will come a point in time where I can't do every sales call. There will come a point in time where I can no longer be the do it all guy. I have to be the ideas guy. So as you are transitioning to now where you're doing less and less with your hands or your mouth or your face or whatever you want to do it with, and more into speaking into the people below you, basically building the people for them to build the company. What has been a couple of the things you've seen over the past 90 days that you go, ooh, this is something that I wish I would have known when I first started releasing these things?
Culture is top down. So this isn't something I didn't know. It's just something that's really hard to implement.
Yeah.
And so I'll give you one example. So I have a member of my executive team that's severely overweight, diabetic, is on the verge of having a heart attack. I wanted to get the culture at my company to become a fitness culture. That's a problem if one of my top leaders is obese. And so I knew I couldn't go to the org and start preaching fitness before this guy turned his life around. So every day, imagine me being an asshole to you, coming in and saying, if you don't shape up your life, I'm going to fire you. If you don't start doing jumping jacks and turn your weight around, fix your weight, I'm going to fire you. Like, you have to fix this. The vision of the company is going the opposite direction. Get your shit together, sir. Well, he did. And tough love. And by the way, I wouldn't want to be this guy, right? Going through this. This is very difficult stuff, right? But it was what the company needed. Now he's my number one advocate for the fitness culture. He has a long way to go, but every day he's going on miles long walks, hikes, biking. He's on the treadmill and he's posting content. And can you imagine the vulnerability of a severely overweight man posting content about his own journey?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it changed his life. He's now more humble. He's now more interesting as a person. More people buy into him. More people listen to him. And guess what? Now my top-down culture and organization has a mascot even. And so this is what I cannot stress enough, that culture is top-down. If you tell your people you want this, but your leaders are doing this, you have a problem and it will never sustain itself. And so culture is top down is the thing that I cannot stress enough, that every leader needs to understand, live their vision, Make sure your leaders live it before you go down to the managers. Make sure your managers live it before you go down to the tacticians and technicians.
That's great. We're actually going to close it out with that because that was such a good segue. So just to give the people who are listening that are on Amazon or looking to maybe take their brand, because a lot of the people that listen to me, they're either are already on Amazon to a certain degree, or they have a decent sized brand off of Amazon and they're looking for another sales channel. Where do they connect with you or connect with your agency?
So my email is steven@myamazonguy.com, Steven with the B. I check all those emails myself. You can follow me on YouTube, youtube.com/myamazonguy, or check us out on LinkedIn. I post there twice a day. That's how prolific I am on LinkedIn. #1 Amazon influencer in the space. So look forward to connecting with you guys. You guys have my email. You know where to find me, where I hang out.
Awesome. Steven, with a V, just like me, I appreciate you so much for being here. And for everyone listening, we'll see you in the next episode.
Cheers.